And I check all my settings on the internet, make sure we're good. We should be streaming in the moment. Get rid of this Periscope connection.
Tim, let me just ask you.
We're streaming. Yeah.
Are we on already?
Yeah, we're streaming now, yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. Just want to, yeah, we're live and people can see us now, but it's a little buffer between that and between our internet connection, which is typical. But anyway, I'm looking now. I see my people on YouTube. Hey, YouTube people.
Let's sprinkle some crack on them and get out of here.
Can I get some YouTube love out there? Low-key says they hear us both. They hear us both. And Low-key says they hear us both. They hear us both. They hear us both. That's Facebook. Give me a little feedback. 1 second. Okay, go live on Facebook. All right. Facebook looks good. All right, guys. There go my people, Laura O'Kenna. What's going on, guys? How you doing? Welcome to the Tim Black at Night Show, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a great guest, There go my people, Laura O'Kenna. What's going on, guys? How you doing? Stop talking to me, Facebook. All right, let's try that again. Hello, I'm Tim Black. Welcome to the Tim Black at Night Show. I got a guest of mine tonight that I've had on before and had the opportunity to meet. He's a former law professor. I think still is a law professor. I don't think they take that from you. He's a law professor. He's also was an aide, a legislative aide, and a Wall Street economics expert. He's known for running in Florida, a politician that I think is a breath of fresh air. And what he's up against is something I think most of my audience is very much aware of. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and yours, Tim Canova. Give it up for Tim.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, brother. So, Tim, man, I like when I saw you in D.C. at the Unity March with Lee Camp and Steve Grumbine and the whole crew, I want to just say, man, it's great to meet you and great to have you sit down again. But how are things going, man, since the last election? Well,
first, Tim, I got to say thank you for having me on, not just today, but during my last campaign. And it was a thrill to meet you in person when I was in D.C. I guess that was back in October, I think. A lot's happened since then. We started a community action group called Progress for All, grassroots, small donor-based. It helped us stay very active in all kinds of issues of importance here in Florida, including up in Tallahassee during the last state legislative session. And, of course, during the past year, a lot of folks were egging me on to get back in and go for round 2 against Wasserman Schultz. We learned a lot from the first campaign. I hadn't been a candidate for all that long. I know it might have seemed like a long time. It did to me at the time. But I was a candidate for less than 8 months. And in just the last 2 or 3 months of the campaign is where we really came roaring on and almost took her at the finish line. So just a few weeks back, I made it official and jumped back in. So I'm challenging her in 2018 with the same pledge that I made last time that I kept, which is that we won't take any corporate money. This time around, I'm not going to take any political action committee money. Last time I took a small amount from a few labor unions. And this time, it's 100% small donor-based online contributions. Last time we raised a lot of money that way. We had over 209,000 individual contributions with an average contribution of $17. I know Bernie was at the $27, so I was the mini Bernie.
Not a bad place to be.
No, not bad.
Yeah. Tim, a matter of fact, there were a lot of politicians who came on after you did on this platform, and they wanted to be mini Tim Canovas.
That's nice to hear.
They did because they saw what you did and that the model that you emulated. So you say now, no union, no corporate, no union money.
Well, I'll tell you this. I welcome union support, and I don't think you'll find anyone running for office who's more pro-labor than I am. During the last campaign, I talked about the need to actually overturn the 1947 Taft-Hartley Act, which has done so much damage to union organizing in this country. So I'm very pro-labor, but I don't want to take any corporate money. And while I'm at it across the board, no political action committee money. I don't have a super PAC set up to help me the way Wasserman Schultz does. So it's another David versus Goliath. It's another, grassroots campaign against the machine. A lot of folks say, well, you didn't beat her last time. How can you beat her this time? And, last time, she might have been, in the middle of a lot of scandal, but there was still the perception, especially down here in South Florida, that Wasserman Schultz was about to be in a new Hillary Clinton administration.
True.
She was the co-chair of Clinton's campaign at the end. Folks thought she might end up in the Clinton White House or in a cabinet position even. And now people take a look at Wasserman Schultz and, that air of invincibility is very much gone. People look at her and they very quickly, most people will say that she deserves a lot of the blame for how badly the election turned out for Democrats last year. First in blocking Bernie Sanders, and then in elevating Donald Trump. The DNC had that all over its hands. WikiLeaks revealed that Trump was one of the Pied Piper candidates that the DNC and their friends at MSNBC were all going to promote because, of course, Trump was the one Republican they thought Hillary would beat.
And they were wrong about that. See, one of the things I love about Tim Canova, guys, is that he shoots it straight. How many other politicians do you hear who would even bring up WikiLeaks in a conversation? Notice, hold up, Tim. I want to give you props, man, because notice how I didn't have to introduce that at all. That's just Tim being Tim. So, guys, let's give it up for that. I talk to a lot of polls, and they don't typically do that. And what you just brought up is a valid point. I watched an earlier interview that you gave. I think it was a local interview in Miami, Tim, and they were kind of hammering you on that point. Well, what can you do differently? And I don't think they grasp the unpopularity of the Democratic Party at the moment. How do you see that, with Debbie Wasserman in this time out?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of denial still among establishment circles, whether it's in the Democratic Party or in the mainstream media. A lot of denial about how unpopular the Democrats really have become at this point. And the way I see it playing out here in the past year, ever since the election, past half year or so, is the Florida Democratic Party is in a severe crisis right now. About 2/3 of the Florida congressional delegation are Republicans. About 2/3 of the state legislature is Republican. And of course, you take a look at the plight of the Democrats nationally, and I think the party, from what I've been reading, has not been in a weaker position since 1920. And a lot of the carnage, you could say, occurred while Wasserman Schultz was chair of the DNC. It wasn't just the fiasco of 2016. We've all seen the numbers that the Democrats lost over 1,000 legislative seats while she was the party chair. And, this is a party that is really on the brink of disappearing if we don't pull it. When I say we, if the grassroots of the party does not really come to the rescue. Unfortunately, the establishment keeps looking at us like we're the problem and not the solution.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Hey, Tim, and with a party that's on this trajectory, as you just stated, why have you considered going Green Party or considered going third party? Why stay with the Democratic Party at this point?
I've certainly considered going independent. Politics are local, so you really have to take a look at the district that you're in. And when I take a look at the district I'm in, the Green Party is not really an alternative here. It just is not well organized. It doesn't have a strong history, a strong tradition here in this part of South Florida, or in most of Florida, to tell you the truth. The Democratic Party is very strong. It's a very blue district I'm in, which means, the last time I was running, whoever was going to win that primary was certainly going to win the general election. Mm-hmm. But, the idea of maybe running independent, it's certainly out there. If the party here continues to play by their skewed kind of rules that they have in the past, where I don't get to debate the incumbent, where I've got to go begging for a debate. The last time I ran against her, she was very sly in scheduling one debate on a Sunday morning for half an hour when already a third of the electorate had voted absentee. That kind of those kind of games, I don't have a lot of patience for it right now, and I don't think folks should. So it's a long way between now and next year. We'll see what happens. But for now, I've been a Democrat most of my life. And I know some people say, Tim, get over it. You got to leave the party. And I hear what they're saying. But, even though I'm running as a Democrat, you probably can't find anyone who's more anti-establishment Democratic Party than I am. When you declare against the head of the DNC, which is what she was at the time, I was going full tilt against the party. I plan on going against the party establishment again. Just my existence is proof of that at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, I'm one of those people that believe it's not about party, it's about people, and it's about policy. So, right. I just think that people ask that question, they kind of want some insight on that. And it makes sense. All politics is local. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I just saw something. It looks like damage control. They're turning over this laptop connected to Avon Brothers and these contractors up on Capitol Hill that had access. Are you familiar with that story?
A little bit. I've read about it for the last few months. The Avon Brothers, they were employed by Wasserman Schultz and a bunch of other Democrats on the Hill, I think on the House side, and they came under investigation by the Capitol Hill police for not just embezzling equipment, but apparently cybersecurity violations, taking confidential congressional information and moving it off-site. When you read these accounts, it sounds like they might have had an extortion racket going on, perhaps. It's hard because the accounts don't give quite enough information to know what the end game was for the Avon Brothers and who they were tied to. The initial reports suggested that, when the news came out that they were under investigation, just about everybody on the Hill fired them as their IT people, except Wasserman Schultz. And it was reported that she was very close to one of the Avon brothers and his wife, that they were personal friends. I'm not sure. One of the accounts I read suggested that the Avon brothers may have already fled to Pakistan, which is where they're from. So, of course, you probably saw the video from about 2 months ago when Wasserman Schultz was at a subcommittee hearing it was the Appropriations Subcommittee on Legislative Appropriations. And the chief of the Capitol Police was there to talk about, legislative appropriation matters. I imagine the budget for the Capitol Hill Police. And Wasserman Schultz used that opportunity apparently to try to intimidate him and demand that he return a laptop that was seized in the course of the investigation of the Avon Brothers. Now, to a lot of folks, when that story came out, of course, my phone started ringing off the hook. People were calling and saying, "Have you seen this?" And she looks guilty of something, and who knows? I just think if you got nothing to hide, shouldn't she be cooperating with the Capitol Hill Police instead of trying to intimidate the chief of police? So the latest report I saw just a day or two ago is that now her lawyers are in negotiations with the Capitol Hill Police, and supposedly they are now cooperating. So let's see. I hope that investigation continues without political interference, but one never knows when you're dealing with Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want people to, I don't know, I kind of jumped ahead. I want to make sure people know the platform that you have, Tim. Sure. I can't assume that everyone's been around as long as we have. A couple issues. Tim Canova, climate change. What do you feel about climate change? And where do you stand on rolling back the devastation to the aquifer and what have you?
So climate change is one of the most important issues in Florida in particular. You could be 1,000 miles inland and maybe you don't notice the rising sea levels. You might have other climate consequences. But I've been a very big advocate of a mobilization, you could say, to deal with the climate problem. And in fact, there's a group called Climate Mobilization that endorsed me in the last campaign. And it's a great group, and it's the whole idea that we need like a World War II type of a mobilization to convert not 20 or 30 years in the future, but to do it with all deliberate speed. You know, World War II, that mobilization occurred so quickly, and the United States won this, you know, world war on, you know, several oceans and continents in only 3.5 years. But it required mobilizing all of our resources, financial, human, technological, and I think that's the kind of commitment we need. Here in South Florida, we see rising sea levels that are beginning to endanger the aquifer in South Florida, the Biscayne aquifer, they call it. And it's endangering it because the rising sea levels have just begun to lead to what they call saltwater intrusion into the aquifer. If that trend continues, the aquifer is not, we're not going to be able to drink out of it. We're going to need some other technology to convert salt water into drinking water. You go further up north, a couple of hours from here, and you might remember during my last campaign, there was all of this toxic green algae coming out of Lake Okeechobee and fouling the waterways. Well, the reason for that is Lake Okeechobee is an enormous lake. It's the second largest lake within the confines of the continental U.S. And it would naturally flow into the Everglades, and that would recharge the aquifer here in South Florida. But the natural flow of water is impeded by big agribusinesses, including the big sugar farms. Okay, and the state voters on all of these issues are way ahead of the politicians because the politicians have been in the pockets of big sugar. One study showed that the big sugar companies have given $53 million to both Democratic and Republicans in Florida in the last 20 years. And then you go even further north, Tim, and you've got the Sable Trail Pipeline, a 515-mile pipeline through Alabama and Georgia into Florida that we fought it. We fought it for the last year. Progress for All, the group that I launched, and a lot of other groups were fighting it. But it is now operational, and when it's working at capacity, it will be pumping 1 billion cubic feet of fracked gas each and every day, all to export in the form of liquefied natural gas. And that pipeline goes right through the upper Floridian aquifer that provides 60% of the state's drinking water, and it's sinkhole country. So there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. And I'll tell you, if you put solar panels on half the acreage of that 515-mile pipeline, you'd produce more energy each day.
Wow.
Okay, that's what's at stake here. And last year, the voters of Florida, 73% of the voters voted for solar energy, but the private utility companies keep trying to block us in the state legislature from having that referendum implemented. So this is the Sunshine State, and yet the projections that the utility companies give us is that in 6 years from now, in 2023, solar will make up all of 4% of Florida's energy needs. 4%. So climate change is a big issue. We tie it in, of course, with economic development because, you know, a solar green economy is an economy that's decentralized and can produce a lot of jobs here in America. That's the way it should be designed. And, you know, Lord knows that we need a lot of jobs here in South Florida, like a lot of places in this country. This is an unforgiving job market. It's one of the key issues that we are talking about. You know, Wasserman Schultz and, you know, the corporate establishment of both parties, they really represent a type of economics that are a trickle-down economics. Right. You know, you see it in the fiscal side with these ridiculous tax rates that, you know, wealthy folks don't pay taxes anymore. You see it on the monetary side where the central bank, the Federal Reserve, is pumping trillions of dollars into the biggest Wall Street banks and hedge funds. You know, during the financial crisis, they made, in the first 2 years of the financial crisis, $29 trillion in low-interest loans. I'm talking about at 0.25%. That is trickled down. It pumps up the stock market. It raises real estate prices in places like DC and New York and Miami and San Francisco. It makes real estate so unaffordable that ordinary working stiffs can't afford to live anywhere near where they work sometimes. And they have long commutes on deteriorating infrastructure, transit systems that are falling apart. You know, all of this is tied together. We need a new deal, a new deal that really mobilizes resources, public works, a revived public sector, infrastructure investment. And when I talk about infrastructure, that includes the public schools. It is shameful how bad our public schools have fallen. I'm a child of the public schools. When I went to school, K to 12, those were great public schools that I went to. And that's what we have to be investing in now in this generation. So we've got environmental issues. We've got economic issues. There is mass incarceration, the war on drugs. These were all big issues last year. They haven't gone away, and I haven't changed. You know, we are still for decriminalizing marijuana here in Florida. The state voters voted for medical marijuana. Right. The state legislature is dragging its feet on implementing medicinal marijuana. Wasserman Schultz has been taking money from let me count the interest. You know, private prisons, big pharma, you know, big alcohol. And perhaps that explains why she's really been one of the big drug warriors here in Florida.
Yeah, Tim, you make my job so easy. You just segue right from the issue, and then you apply it to the economics of what's important to people in Florida. And these are all points I wanted to bring up, guys. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Big Sugar. Where's she on Big Sugar? I'm guessing that she has donors who are attached to Big Sugar. Is that a guess? I'm in the right ballpark there?
You are completely in the ballpark. Big Sugar is one of her biggest contributors, actually. And I am proud to say that last year, in the home stretch of my campaign, we got a lawyer's letter from the lawyers representing some of the Big Sugar companies, threatening to sue us if we continued with our slanderous allegations that Big Sugar was connected to some of the environmental problems in Florida. And we didn't back down. You know, it's like, bring it on. If you want to sue us, go right ahead. We are speaking the truth. And that's what this campaign is about. That's what your show is about. That's what our movement is about, is to keep speaking the truth to power and keep speaking the truth to the powerless, to those who don't have power, who still need to hear the truth as well.
I got you, Tim. Look, Tim, I think that everyone who's watching this show, I doubt that there's anyone watching who would support Debbie Wasserman Schultz over you. So I want to jump to, what can we do to win this election? Because, yeah, it's great to be right on principle and to be right on these issues, but we need to get some wins. So going forward, what do we need to do? Where are you at? Talk to me.
So I'll tell you, like any campaign, we need resources. And those resources are everything from volunteers here in the district, to volunteers around the country. I just went out to Los Angeles a few weeks ago. We had a couple of meet and greets. We met with Kimberly Ellis, the courageous, should-be leader of the California Democratic Party.
Absolutely.
We had a couple of big rallies. And, you know, everywhere I went, I had folks coming up to me, you know, telling me, I made phone calls for you. I contributed every month for you. And it was that kind of grassroots effort that allowed us to have the resources to give Wasserman Schultz a run for the money. And that's what it's going to take to win. We need folks to go online to timcanova.com. I'm not asking for big donations, you know, just small amounts, recurring if you can, spread the word, share it to others. Last campaign, I think, you know, you might have heard the statistics, 209,000 times somebody in this country clicked on their computer and donated on average $17.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing.
And, you know, Bernie really led the way. We saw how Bernie was raising the money that way. I knew when I jumped in that we could plug in, we could tap into that grassroots energy, because we are the grassroots, you know. Right. And I made a pledge last time. I make the same pledge this time, that no corporate money. Last time I didn't pick up the phone once and dial for dollars. And this is what's become typical in this country. You know, 60 Minutes did an episode. Candidates for Congress are spending 30 hours a week on average dialing rich folks, wealthy CEOs, to beg them for money. I didn't make one single call last year. This time around, we want to raise money, not just for the campaign, but to pay for a recount no matter what the result. Okay, that's one of the lessons from the last campaign, is that election integrity doesn't just matter. It is almost the only thing that matters, perhaps. If we don't have trust in the count of the vote, we have nothing. And we have to hold the feet to the fire of the local election officials. We have to be ready to pay for a recount and to do a citizen's audit. So we're talking to people at Democracy Counts. They're trying to put together a software system for a citizen's audit. And that's one of the differences between this go around and the last one.
Yeah. The fact that you brought that up, I know there are a lot of progressives out there clapping. I can hear you in here, guys, about election fraud, because it's something that we talk about all the time. We say it doesn't get enough attention. Once again, guys, this is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of Tim Canova. It's not just because we both are bald. It's because, I mean, that has something to do with it. But it's because his policies and what he stands for is ethics. So I'm looking here. He's got a great team, by the way. I want to give a couple shout-outs. Stephanie Myers, I met her at the summit, the People's Summit. I know she's running in Florida. I wanted to shout her out.
She's running for a state assembly district, and she is also taken a pledge not to take any corporate money. And, there are a bunch of corporate interests here in Florida that have just been toxic for the state. And, it takes a lot of courage for somebody like Stephanie, her first run for office, and she's doing it the right way.
Absolutely. Peter Hager, one of the members of your team, met him also in Chicago. We had an opportunity to talk. And, of course, Jeff Campbell, Miami Gator, Jeff Miami out there as well on Twitter. These guys are always keeping me up to date what's happening. Now,
these guys are fantastic. I just want to, second your emotion there. Peter Hager and Jeff Campbell, with friends like that, it's so helpful.
I just want to clear up something for people, because I saw your interview and you responded about the question about Bernie's endorsement. And sure. I just want to make that, to get you to explain that to the audience. So Bernie Sanders endorsed you in 2016. It was to a lot of fanfare. People were very excited about it. He has not come out yet. Right. What's your response to not hearing from Bernie regarding your new run?
Well, first, I got to tell you, the first time around, I was as surprised as anyone that Bernie Sanders endorsed me. A lot of folks were saying, you got to try to get in touch with Bernie. Try to get in touch with the Bernie Sanders campaign. Of course he should endorse you. And my attitude was, people run their own races. And I thought it was never realistic for him to endorse me because, he's running for president. What's he going to endorse? The challenger to the DNC chair? I just thought it's just never going to happen. And when it came out of the blue, I was surprised. I was gratified. It helped us raise a lot of money. We had raised $1 million even before his endorsement, but the endorsement really, turbocharged the campaign. Now, he has not made an endorsement yet, but I'll tell you something. He hasn't endorsed any other candidate running against an incumbent Democrat. I'm the only one he's ever endorsed, I believe, running against an incumbent Democrat on Capitol Hill, that is,
right.
A member of the House or the Senate. He, Bernie, God bless him, has been working on Capitol Hill inside that viper's nest in Washington, D.C. for a lot of years. And, I think freedom of action is a little bit constrained because of that. Again, I'm not expecting an endorsement, and I don't think we need an endorsement to win. If he endorses me, that's wonderful. The more important is that I endorse him, that I endorse his program, his platform, the kind of politics that he has popularized so much. And I'll tell you, when our campaign ended and we started Progress for All kept working on the issues, and we were putting out all kinds of calls for phone banking and for fundraising to help Bernie's agenda, whether it was Medicare for all or tuition-free higher education and a lot of other Bernie bills up on Capitol Hill.
I see the pathway for you, and I thank you so much, Tim, for taking time to clear that up. I don't think a lot of people even consider the fact that Bernie Sanders himself was running, and I don't know if it helped him in Florida to really piss off Hillary supporters by endorsing Tim Canova, who's taking down Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And
that's the point, Tim. I'll tell you, last year I got asked an awful lot of times to endorse this candidate or that candidate. And I'll tell you, when you're a candidate, you gotta realize that it's your race. It's not somebody else's race. I don't hold anything against Bernie or anyone else for not endorsing. Endorsements don't really win a lot of votes. I think Bernie's endorsement did help get us the kind of attention that helped the campaign continue to build.
Right.
I'm forever grateful for that. But I've heard some folks getting angry at Bernie. Why won't Bernie jump on board again? I'm like, ease up, take it easy. This is not Bernie's race. Bernie doesn't live in South Florida. This is our race.
Of course, we'll take it if we get it, but it's not mandatory. In fact, I saw what happened with Ossoff and how they tied Ossoff to Nancy Pelosi. I'm wondering if Debbie Wasserman Schultz can be tied to, I don't know, Hillary Clinton, by the way.
Well, she's tied herself there already.
There you
and,
go.
I'm not a career politician. For me, it really was a calling last year. I felt compelled the way a lot of folks who hadn't gotten involved or that involved in politics started to run for office or phone bank or donate, doing things that were outside of their comfort zones or outside of their experience. And since I'm not an established politician and I'm still an outsider going against an incumbent, I've got a lot more freedom of action to speak my mind and to endorse candidates who are running against the machine. And that's why I endorsed Kimberly Ellis in California. And I've given shout outs to a number of other candidates who are running against very powerful Democrats around this country.
Well, Tim, looks, ladies and gentlemen, Tim Canova is going to be back. We're just getting this kicked off. He's busy. He's out there campaigning. He's working his butt off already. Tim Canova, tell people where to go to find out more about your campaign and support it.
Thank you. Folks can go to timcanova.com. They can read up on the issues. We've got very detailed issue statements. They could donate modest amounts, and please share the link with others on social media. And, in time, we're going to be at a stage where folks can do phone banking again and hopefully come to the district. We had an awful lot of folks from around South Florida, but also from all over the country, from as far away as Hawaii, to tell you the truth, and as far north as Maine, who came down here and spent some of their summers last year in the Florida heat and humidity to knock on doors for us.
Well, yeah, what can I tell you, Tim? It's electric, man. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz just brings out the best of us to get her out of the way. Look, Tim Canova, thank you so much for taking time out. Is there anything you wanted to mention that I omitted asking?
I'm sure there's some other issues we could have talked about off the top of my bald head. I'm not sure. Folks can go online and check it out. I just want to say thanks again to you, Tim. What you're doing is so important. Folks see the charade of the mess, the mainstream media, where they'll talk about anything but the issues. They'll make up issues and blow some issues out of proportion while not really addressing the issues that matter to ordinary folks who have problems paying their bills every month.
Russia.
Exactly. Well, and Tim, you keep it real, and a lot of folks in the alternative, social media do. And what you're doing is so important, and I'm just so grateful to be on your show, and I'm thankful for everything you're doing.
Hey, Tim, thank you, my brother. This time we're in early, ladies and gentlemen. We're in it early to support Tim Canova. Let's do it. Go to timcanova.com. Find out more about the platform. Detailed breakdown available for you there. Tim, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on the Tim Black Show.
Thank you, Tim.
You got it, brother. Tim Black. Tim Black. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Yes, I am. And we are ending stopping video. And we're done. In meeting for all. Tim Black. You're done, Tim. I am TimBlack.com. Tim Black.